Hello to everyone, this is Vishal, and now we have a new session of the day that is related to the Rxjava. And as we have done many tutorials related to the Rxjava, and from past few days we are working with basic tutorials of Rxjava because of some users want that the basic things related to the Rxjava. So I am again making this kind of tutorials so we can learn in a deep of Rxjava and how we can achieve it and where we need it. This Rxjava we have to learn. And in our five just uploaded videos in which we have watched that how the different kind of observable works in Rxjava, but where we need it and how we can do it with the web services on the room. So that's the day we are going on with the other sessions also for the basic approach. But today we are discuss about the async task and retrofit calling with that, and how we can do it with the new achievement that is our Rxjava, and how we make it observable to that or retrofit call. So that's the day. And as I already told you many times that I really appreciate whatever you put it on the commands, and some users want to approach me, so it's good you can get my email ID, that's vishalkambo88@gmail.com. There you can send your queries, so I will make more tutorials to that, and if you have any queries regarding that you can ask to me. So thank you for so much for your love and appreciations for my videos. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have to learn today that what is async task if somebody asks to you, and there's a lot of definition related to that, and how we can do it in our old way. That's the wrong thing now, and we have to work with the Rxjava with our retrofit calls or whatever we use. If you use volley there, so here, if we go for the async task, generally what is async task? It is designed to be a helper class around thread and handler and does not constitute a generic threading framework. Means that is the simple way we can say that async task is defined by a computation that runs on a background thread and whose result is published on UI thread. So as I discussed with you, as you see on observe on and subscribe on my Rxjava tutorials before, in which we have worked with the main part and schedulers with IO part, so likewise that. But I will make one more video for that where you use the thread and where you use the background processes. But today I'm just showing to you how a simple async task be done by old approach, and we have why we do not want to use that now, and there's the drawbacks of doing that, and how we can do it with our new approach. And background processes we have to learn on subscribe on and your observe on, that I will make new video for basics of that. So as we say that async task is designed to be a helper class around thread and handler and does not constitute a generic threading framework. Means if you want to do some parallel process with your activity, or if you want some background processes with that, and if there be a lot of data be there and you do not want directly call on that, you need a thread of that parallelly. So where we have to use that this kind of async task in our apps. And just like if you want to load some file, and if you want to get access some data on recycler view sometimes, and parallelly if you want to call functions with there, so that's we can achieve it by the old approaches. That's our async task. So what's the drawback? I'm not going in a deep of that. We just simply learn what is async task. That is a parallel. And uh, yes, so what is the drawbacks? So drawbacks be your memory leaks, because of an async task has a methods that runs on the worker thread doing background, as well as a methods that run in UI on the post execute. So actually when we work with the async task, so there we have some methods. As you work with this async task, you know that first we have to create a class. I will show you again, so on practically. Uh, what we have, sync task, we first create a class there, then we call the methods just like you're on. If you want with the pre-execute, do it in background, on the progress update, on the post execute. So these kind of methods we have to implement this with this class, and then we call the class and execute it wherever you want that. So that's the execution process. So here you say that because an async task has a methods that runs on the worker thread, that is the do in background, as well as the methods that run on the UI post executes. So it has to keep reference to the activity as long as it's running. But sometimes it destroy, sometimes maybe it crash. So what happened there? Some process be going on, and that means your reference of the memory is leaked there. So this is completely useless because the task has been cancelled anyway. Okay, so losing your results, sometimes that is orientation issues we have, rotations issues we have. So what we have to do, that means if we have an activity and we're doing some task there, background processes, and suddenly if we rotate that, so that's an effect on that. So that means the main method is on the post execute. So these kind of drawbacks be there on that cases, but the Rxjava, it's a perfect solution for that. So I will show you how it work. So let us start it on Android Studio and we discuss it practically how we can achieve a small method call be there. That's we have both the sides. We have an old approach with the retrofit, we have a new approach with the retrofit. So that's the difference we learn on practically. So let us start it on Android Studio. Okay, so here we have on click, we have a button. So on that event, we have to find something. And here on the Gradle, you need some implementations for the dependencies that's related to the Rxjava. That's the retrofit with Rxjava adapter. That's the most important. I will describe you why. And that is the bridge between that. And we have a simple retrofit with a JSON. So I'm using the JSON at this times, and this is your Rx Android. So these things you need to implement on that. And if you want, then I will put it on the GitHub also, so you can see that there. Okay, so the first most important thing is we have to make a package. Package is your model. I'm not using any view model and nothing else at this time. I'm just simple just call the functions of the Rxjava and async task, how we can implement that I described to you. So no any MVVM approach here, just click the things and get the things. So if you want to go for that, you can see my old approaches, or I will make more videos for that related to this. So this is our model and this is remote, two packages we have. On the model, first we have to check what our data be. So here you can see that this is the JSON for my server. We can get it, that is the local server, and this is a Mac. So if you go for the system preferences, you can check the IP address for that. So this is the employee JSON. So what we do, as I describe you many times, you just go for the JSON schema to Pozo. You just copy paste it here, and you can see that this is the first name, last name, first name. I'm putting the same JSON here, and the most important thing is here the target is whatever your target, that is a Java class. Source type is important, you have to make a JSON, and I return type and the annotation styles I'm using with the JSON. So these things be important, the rest of you can make it. And here you give your class name for the response, your package name, so you can directly put this zip on your project, but I'm not using, I'm just checking the preview for that. So if you go for the preview, it is a perfect poso for the retrofit calls. Okay, and this is the employee class. I'm just copy paste it. I'm not using the zip here. So under the model, I'm making a Java class. that's employee, and put it here. So you can see that the serialized be here, first name and the last name. And one more class I'm making here for the employee response, for this serialize for your responses. So this is our employee response, and this is the response approach of the employee. So I'm copy paste it, and this is your expose list and serialized name. So easy. So this thing once done, now we can go for, this is our first JSON. So you can see that the serialized form, our employees serialized form, it's just mapping on the retrofit calls whenever you use that. Okay, so for this we have to go for the remote, and under the remote we have to make a interface, that is your API service. As I built it many times, you can see my previous approaches of doing retrofit. So here, this is the interface, we need to implement it, and I need to get the things be here. So for getting what we want this location. So I'm using a slash, that be the location, and here we need to call the function. So this is the call way, and not a call telecom, this is the call retrofit, and this call be your employee response. So get employee response. So this is the way we can achieve. And what you do, get para, let's see what happened, at get, and copy it. So that's it using the other get. Okay, so now it's fine. So this is the way you can get your API service for the interface, and we need to make it a class for that. So here I am making a class, that is a retro class. So we can see the your network on the Mac. Yeah, it's a 192.168.15.3. so this IP address for this. So what I have to do, we just go for your static URL for to get access. So I'm making that a private static final string, and I'm giving the name to this URL. This HTTP, yes sir, 192.168.15.3. So that's our base URL. So for this, first I'm making a one function, that is the private, because of we just make a class as in a singleton, we can get access anywhere. So this is your static retrofit get get retro instance here, and I'm making this return. So here it return new retrofit dot builder, and whenever you use this builder, that means it get access your base URL, and that base URL is the base URL, and this is your build. So that means we just get access in our this class method. The method is here, that is a public static API service, get API service. So we can call this anywhere, so make it a public, and here I am returning the get retro instance dot your create, this is your API service class. So we can get access. The most important thing is, as our data B is in the form of JSON, so what to do for, we need a JSON, alt enter, that's your new JSON builder dot set lenient. I already described you why we're using this. You can see on my simple basic tutorials of your uh, retrofit. Okay, so here we can use the add converter factory, and this converter factory is your JSON converter factory. That means we return the things we in the form of, and that's we are create, and under that create we need this JSON. Okay, so that's the thing. We can build our retro class. So our retro class be ready, our API service be ready. Just call this be here. So I'm making a function called data for this retro. So how we can get access this class? So I'm just making your API service, that implementation, and just call this implementation be like API service. This is your retro class. So it's so easy to get the things as in a singleton. So API service, so we can call this method be here. So I'm using this call. This is the retrofit call, and this retrofit call I am returning the values with a form of response, and this is, we can say, employees response call, and this is your API service dot get employee response be here, and employee response call dot enqueue is a new callback. Okay, in this new callback, what we have to do, we have to check what happened, log.d. Here I am returning the value, that is a call response, and we can check the response dot body dot get implies. I'm just checking for the 0 value, that was the very first. I'm not using the loop at this time, just for check the get first name, is it fine or not. And here we need to check that response dot is successful. If it is successful, then we come in this, else it's showing me if there be any after successing if any issue. So that means call response any issue, and here on the failure side we can check that call failure, and this is our t dot get message. So let's see that directly I'm not using any async task at them first at this time first. So here I'm using the simple call data. So let run this code and see what happened. So it's easy to work with the retrofit, and now we can achieve it with the Rxjava. Both are very easy. I will make more tutorials for the retrofit basics, lot of things where we have to know about uh, on a deep. And in Rxjava I will make new tutorials for the schedulers, where we need a threading and which kind of threading we want. Sometimes we need a background process, sometimes we need a main thread process. So that we have to discuss on my coming sessions. So it's working, that's installing APK. Let clear this locket and click it. So yeah, it's give the name John to me. So you can see the first name is John. Okay, so we can create a loop for this, for int I is equals to 0, I is less than your response dot body dot get implies dot response dot body dot size. We get for the size, and this is for I plus plus. Okay, so you can see that the responses for your, and here you can use this I, and just shift and copy paste it. Response, this is your first name, this is your last name. So here you can make a get last name. Okay, so let's run this simple call methods p for the retrofit. So every theory wants a good practical. If your base be clear, you can do anything. That's the strategy of doing any work. So you can see that the first name, last name, first name, last name, and first name, last name. So I want the same process be as in a form of async. So what we doing on our old approaches, let's see it with the async task. So we can make a private class async task class here. Okay, and in this we can extend our async task, and here I'm using the parameter void comma nothing. We have three parameters. I'm using the void. Okay, and it show me that implement methods. So it show me the first method is doing background. If you go with rest of the methods, so you can see that lot of methods. We have the post execute, cancel, we have pre-execute, these kind of methods. So the main method is your background process. I'm just showing that. And if you call this function be here, that's your call data. Just nothing we have to return. And if you're working with the main method or a main approach, so you can go for your post execute also, and here I'm saying that it is done. So you can put this be anywhere, but at this time I'm just using that do in background. So that's we are done. So this method we have to call here, and not using the call data. This is your async. So we have a class is async task. So what we have to do, new async task dot execute. So that's approach we can see that our old approaches of async task be working. That means the activity is running and the background process be running. So let's see what it gives to us with the execution. So sometimes the activity stops or be issues with that, the background process be running, and sometimes it stops suddenly with on your activity. So a lot of issues with the memory leaks be there. So let click on that. So you can see that same process be done and we can achieve it. But this is the old approach. I'm not going in the depth of this, so I'm not making this like in the future apps. So we have to go for the Rxjava. So for Rxjava, what we need some changes in it. Some changes in it, that means first I had this code. First what we have to need it, we need to go for your API services, and I'm making this observable. That's your employee response. That is the most important. So once you make it observable, so that means everything should be as an emitting data, as I described you first time on my very first tutorial, in which I described to you observable, but you have to use the observable with IO reactive X observable. Okay, so that's, and how you can call that, so that's the way we can get access. So for the main activity, on the click button, or you can access it as an observable, your employee list, employee response, observable, and that's be your what we have, API service dot get employee response. So these things be your employee response dot observe on. Now we can go for our Android, that I will describe you where we need this as in a background process, or where we need as a subscribe on. So that's coming in my coming tutorials, will describe these things to you. At this time I'm using the IO and dot subscribe, and under that subscribe, what we have done, we need observer. If you go by first tutorial of observer, so it's very good, so we can dispose the things, so there is no loss of memory be here. And the same thing we have to go for, that means on employee response. Okay, so let's see, log.d, this is emp response be here, employee response dot get employees dot get 0 dot get first name. The same approach I'm using here. And on error, if there is an error, you can get access the things. And it's most important, I'm not using at this time, you have to dispose. I describe you on the first tutorial basics, you have to disposable, make it that means you have to kill this. Okay, and on complete, you can use it done or whatever be. Okay, so things be here as an observable, but the most important thing, it show me the error. If I am using this or run this, it show me the error. So the error is because of there is no bridge between your retrofit and the Rxjava. So let's see, it show me which kind of error, and mainly I have seen this error on Stack Overflow. So most of doing this kind of mistakes be there whenever using the Rxjava with the retrofit. So the main purpose show to you this. Okay, so don't go with that old async task process. You can see that this is the error on the main activity. So it show me unable to create call adapter for IO reactive X observable. So that means we need to make a thing be there as an observable. That's the most important. That means we have to call a adapter factory. Adapter factory means here we have adapter factory. So dot add call adapter factory, and that adapter factory is related to your Rxjava. So this is your Rxjava to call a vector factory dot create. So once it's created, that means there is a bridge between your Rxjava and Retrofit together. So that means it bind both the things and it adapt the things and then convert it. So we can get access by this adapter. And yeah, so run this again. So that's the most important part. So you can see that John and it's done. So that's the best way of doing any task. And if you go for your for int I is equals to 0 and I is less than your employee response dot get employees dot your size I plus plus. Here you can use the I and just copy paste it, and this is your get last name. So we can see that this is first name and this is last name. So you can change that call method into a observable and then work like this whenever you want to call this retrofit access. Okay, and we need the background process. Sometimes we need a new thread process, so we have to work, that is a subscribe uh, uh, on a subscribe on way, that is a scheduler dot new thread, but I am not using it and very rare you have to use that. I will describe you on my next session. So you can see that's very easy and very good work with that, and also you have to dispose the things, so that means no memory leaks. So uh, that's the tutorial of the day of the Rxjava. Thank you so much, and now we have to wind up, and for the future videos I will back. Thank you so much.